All right, YouTube, all throughout the last election, which of course Donald Trump did win fair and square, which people I don't think want to talk about if they didn't vote for him, that is. The point was made. I made this point. Goodman, who's, he's like Bernie Sanders left progressive, made this point. Ramsey Paul, who's like alt-light, made this point. Mulnu, who's like ANCAP, made this point. People all across various parts of the political spectrum, left, right, more authoritarian, more libertarian, I'm more on the libertarian side, some not so much, made the point that the neoconservatives and neoliberals in the country were basically the same thing. They were on the same side. It didn't escape notice among many people when groups like Salon or something, they cheered on the Bushes of all people, who they'd spent all of W's presidency saying, they're evil, they're war hawks, they kill children and drink the blood of babies, and they're Satan, and they're everything wrong with the world. And then they cheered when it came out that Herbert Walker was going to vote for Hillary Clinton, and Jeb and W and all these others wouldn't back Trump. It didn't escape notice that it seems strange that they would celebrate these so-called former enemies of theirs jumping aboard Hillary Clinton's campaign. What we said is that it made sense because neoconservatives and neoliberals, they're corporate money, they're banking allies, they're controlled by the banksters of the world. They're globalists, literally. In the most literal fiscal sense, they take money from foreign entities almost as much as they do domestic entities. Somehow this is not unlawful for them. I would think that would be a conflict of interest. Apparently, it's more of a conflict of interest for Trump to do business in a foreign country 20 years ago than it is for somebody to take money as part of a pay-to-play scheme within the last half decade and then run for the presidency. I don't know exactly what logic follows here, but that's the way I guess people think. Now you've got Glenn Beck, who embarrassed himself multiple times throughout the election. You remember the part there where he and some of his staff, and they didn't look as happy as he did, crushed up some nacho chips or Doritos or whatever it was, and then buried their faces in them and started laughing about being Donald Trump or something like that. It was unfunny. The Blaze, which is his media group, is basically a failure at this point. It's been completely outmaneuvered even by Drudge. What do we know about Drudge? Drudge was like 90s era media. They were establishment legacy media. They've made the successful transition without even updating the graphics of their website to the modern era. The Blaze got left behind. Breitbart is doing better now, which is funny too. Even some of the like actual leftist parts of the underground media are doing so much better than crap like Glenn Beck. I still remember when he claimed he planned to martyr himself because Obama got reelected. And now he's teaming up with a neoliberal, with Samantha Bee, pretending that they're forming some sort of alliance against Trump, which I imagine will go about as well as all of the other stuff Glenn Beck has done. Namely, like martyring himself with 20,000 preachers and priests, which never happened, or the DC trucker crap that Sanchili organized there that ended up being like a dozen trucks that temporarily slowed down a freeway for like half an hour in DC, or that march on Washington that was supposed to be 500,000 people and it was like maybe 1,000 at its peak, and they just sort of stood around chatting for an hour and then most of them left. This is the sort of crap that Glenn Beck and his ilk do. They're attention seekers. He ultimately wants money. He ultimately wants a little bit more fame. He wants to milk things for all they're worth. He doesn't care if 90% of the country thinks he's a total fuckwad lunatic, as long as other people, that other small minority of the American public, kind of takes him seriously and maybe donates to his cause. That's really what he's in it for. I'm surprised he's not legally blind by now. Doesn't he have some sort of degenerative eye condition there that he talked about, and he cried and said on Fox, "Oh, I'll be blind soon," or I'll be dead soon, or something like that. And years later, he seems to be doing fine. Have to assume maybe that was just a pity play. He wrote that crappy book, The Christmas Sweater. It's like a the most ridiculous thing you can possibly think of. You read a single page of it, you get so bored you delete the file. I can't imagine anybody bought the actual book itself. So Glenn Beck has once again embarrassed himself. I'm actually glad, though, because whenever Glenn Beck does something dumb, whenever he does something that's honestly retarded, it's fun to talk about. It's humorous. He's become a living self-satire. Now, this is the same dude on Fox, early Obama era. He used to do all sorts of weird shit. He'd sit there for days and days and days, episode after episode of his failed show. He literally got kicked off of Fox for low ratings. Show after show, he would sit in front of a chalkboard and ramble about George Soros and do his Dracula laugh and so forth. And that got old. At first, people kind of enjoyed it. After a while, anyone who wasn't a total fringe within the Fox News viewing audience, and you gotta realize the average person watching Fox is 68 years old, so not exactly spring chickens. I imagine most of Glenn Beck's audience died off during Glenn Beck's show. Every single episode is the same thing. George Soros controls the world. George Soros is the ultimate source of all evil. George Soros wants martial law. George Soros will make Obama dictator. And then when George Soros starts backing Hillary Clinton, he starts backing Hillary Clinton. Can you say either sold out his ideals or never had any to begin with? Now he's teaming up with neoliberals. I half expect him to jump aboard and say, Clinton 2020, we must stop the madness. Trump hasn't even been inaugurated, and already these people are circling the wagons in their little cliques. Now, this is one thing that helped Trump. I don't think people realized it. All the Never-Trumpers at first were kind of organized, but then they kept rallying around different people. They never solidified behind one actual movement. They broke off into 4 or 5 little schismatic groups that never had each to themselves nearly enough power to put more than a tiny stumbling block in Trump's way. Therefore, he ran roughshod over Clinton. So you had the Becks, who said, begrudgingly, even though I think it was his plan to begin with, I'll vote for Hillary Clinton, I'll back her. Then you had the Rubio allies, the Cruzites, the old guard Bush neocons, and so forth, and they never solidified. What you see now is that Beck realizes that nobody on the right, including a lot of the neocons, takes him seriously, so he's saying, I'll get a new audience, I'll become a leftist. That's basically what he's doing. Interesting business proposal. I'm sure that your readership at The Blaze will be very, very pleased indeed that you're doing this. No, actually, I think that they'll probably cancel their subscriptions. I wouldn't expect Glenn Beck's so-called media group, which is basically a blog at this point, to be around that much longer. He made a lot of money, though, when he was at Fox, so if he spent it wisely instead of on coke like some of these idiots at Fox do, maybe he has enough to last it out till he finally keels over of old age, or degenerative eye problems, apparently, or supposedly. That's what he said he had. Some sort of a degenerative condition that was going to rob him of his sight and make him just a crippled leper who would have to rely more upon Jesus Christ. The Mormon Jesus, of course. I wonder if he had been a Protestant instead of a magic underwear wearer, if the people at Fox would have taken him more seriously. It's funny, he's embarrassing himself again. Just when you think it can't get worse with Glenn Beck, he can't do something that's more stupid than what he's already done. First, runs a show into the ground with the Soros crap, pretends that he's ultimate evil before, then backing the Soros puppet, of course, years later. Very, very amusing. Then he teams up with, the Guerrilla News crap and the DC crap, the DC protests, the DC truckers, whatever it happens to be at the time. Then the midterms are over, Obama's a shoo-in for the next 2 years, fuck this. So I'm just going to martyr myself. I'm going to let Obama kill me in the name of martial law so that I can be like the olive tree of revelation or something like that. And I got 20,000 other people in the priesthood. They're going to do it with me, and we'll just let ourselves get mowed down because we just won't obey. They never even show up. They never even had a protest. They did nothing. He made some cryptic comments about his black robe retard regiment on air, on The Blaze, and then promptly forgot about it. I still remember the time He claimed that he had a whistleblower, and that never materialized either. They didn't even drag some second-tier so-called whistleblower like Tice up on air. Like Rush Tice, I think his name is, if I remember correctly. Or Rice Tice? I can never remember. Russ Tice. But he never does anything. He never speaks about it any further. Half the time when he says something weird, when he says something kind of cryptic or conspiratorial, he never even follows through. It's not like Alex Jones. He says, oh, we got a whistleblower on the show who's going to crack the Illuminati. And they at least have somebody on there. It may be somebody who's talking in a roundabout way about kind of conspiratorial stuff that's been documented for 3 decades, but at least they actually have a follow-up segment. With Glenn Beck, it's even odds as to whether that even happens. He's too busy dipping his face into a bowl full of Doritos. So, I mean, I couldn't think of a more embarrassing individual. Like, say what you want about even like his candidate, Ted Cruz. Yeah, he embarrassed himself, but at the very least, he managed to salvage part of his reputation. At the end of the day, he didn't turn out to be a total fuckwit. He's got the intelligence to understand how to market himself to people. Glenn Beck, there was a time long ago when I was maybe more socially progressive than nowadays, when I would have been considered, more of a left libertarian, let's face it. There was a time when I would have considered him a threatening individual. Oh, well, he wants theocracy or whatever. I don't consider him that anymore because he embarrasses himself so often, it's clear he's full of shit. He's not going to do shit. This so-called alliance with the neoliberals, he probably won't talk about that again either. He'll have Samantha Bee on his show for one weekend, and then they'll forget all about it. It's just a marketing ploy. Oh yeah, maybe I can get like 10 Salon readers away from Salon to read The Blaze. I'll red pill them, into my stupidity or something like that. That's basically how Glenn Beck seems to operate at this point. It's astonishing to watch this man destroy his own career, which was actually promising. You have the height of the Tea Party, the height of distrust in Obama, enormous blowback. Remember, around 2010, thereabouts, early Obama era. Obama's talking about wanting the ACA and the TPP and all these other things, just enraging the Republican core. All the neocons and the evangelicals for the first time are like truly teamed up. Massive movement, millions of people. Glenn Beck shows up. He's like the poster child of everything they stand for. And he manages to run his show into the ground, make himself an embarrassment, has to retreat to talk radio. That's how badly he performed. He siphoned some money while he was there for a couple of years. Now he is basically a non-issue. I wouldn't even talk about him if he weren't amusing to me. Because he's irrelevant, honestly. Glenn Beck has, like many people within the legacy media, even more so. He has less power than many, I would say even most, individuals with a halfway decent blog or YouTube channel or a Facebook page or something like that. He couldn't go toe-to-toe with any of them. He certainly couldn't prevail in a debate against anybody who wasn't totally doped out of their mind. So, that's all I have to say about Glenn Beck. It's funny. I hope he keeps embarrassing himself, because then it gives me something to talk about that's more humorous than serious. Because really, that's what he is. He's a walking self-satire. It's not sad, it's just amusing. It's the purest form of entertainment. It's like watching the Three Stooges, only there's only one stooge. And the stooge happens to have a microphone and half-assed media group. That's about all. Peace out.